Welcome to NBA Jam Pac-Man QC on Fire Edition. Boom shakalaka!
Happy little games. Superheroes in American culture have been around since the early 1900s. Americans were looking for a little superhero help when it came to real superhero problems, and people young and old were getting lost in these modern day adventures. I suppose we could go all the way back to Tarzan, but we were also privy to the Phantom, Superman, Batman, and the big red cheese himself, Captain Marvel. When arcades started taking off in the late 70s and early 80s, Pac-Man was the biggest and best, so it was only a matter of time before the world of superheroes combined with the world of video games. Today, we are taking a look at one of my personal favorites in the Pac-Man lineage, and no, not just because he wore a cape. The name of the game in question is Super Pac-Man. This superhero mountain of a man vowed to bring justice to the world and in the process eat as many fried eggs as possible. What is the connection with Ms. Pac-Man? So let's take a look at the hero we deserve, but not the one that we need, because this is the history of Super Pac-Man. In 1981, the world was still right smack in the middle of Pac-Man fever. Not only were the Pac-Man arcade games a phenomenal success, but they spawned a load of merchandise including toys, board games, a huge song by the name of Pac-Man Fever which reached number 9 on the Billboard Hot 100 and sold 1.2 million copies. Eventually, there would also be a Saturday morning cartoon which is crucial to our story. Namco, ever the forward-thinking company, wanted to cash in on Pac-Man's success and had its designers set out to create a follow-up. In the meantime, Pac-Man became one of the most bootlegged arcade games with its vast assortment of unlicensed knockoffs. A lot of these were clones that were made for the home market, with the biggest one being Casey Munchkin on the Odyssey 2. Initially, Casey was made in an attempt to obtain the Pac-Man license from Namco, but that is a story for another time. However, a company by the name of General Computer Corporation was busy selling modification kits for the original Missile Command arcade and doing pretty well. These modification kits included an upgraded experience which usually resulted in more enemies, different levels, and, more importantly, harder gameplay which would take precious quarters from unsuspecting little kids. Due to the overwhelming success of Super Missile Attack, they felt that other improvements to existing games could also be done, so they set their sights on Pac-Man. The company felt that the simplicity of Pac-Man was great, but didn't offer enough variety, so they set out to create an add-on board with some much-needed improvements. This new modification was dubbed Crazy Auto, and it featured a wide range of improvements including new levels, sound, music, as well as new and improved enemy AI. During the development of Crazy Auto, Super Missile Attack became a subject of a lawsuit by Atari. The company eventually settled with Atari by developing games for their company. Part of the settlement, though, barred GCC from selling future conversion kits without approval from the original arcade game manufacturer. Rather than scrap Crazy Auto, they decided to present the kit to Bally Midway, who were the distributor of Pac-Man in North America. They of course wanted to capitalize on Pac-Man's success with the sequel, and rather than wait for Namco to produce it, decided to acquire the rights to Crazy Auto and release it as a full-blown sequel. Since Bally Midway bought the rights to use it for the sequel, the game was developed without Namco's approval. Eventually, though, Namco president Masaya Nakamura was brought on board to approve the project. Despite having minimal involvement, Namco got a large share of the royalties, which could be why they approved the project in the first place. Now, this is not the superhero game that we ended up receiving because it went through a number of sprite modifications, including changing Auto into a full-fledged Pac Lady with red hair. A number of name changes also occurred, including Pac-Man and Super Pac-Man, Pac-Woman until finally they settled on Ms. Pac-Man, which was released in arcades in 1982. Something else that was released in 1982 was the actual sequel to Pac-Man that was developed by Namco, which was Super Pac-Man. As a matter of fact, due to Namco's insistence, the character of Super Pac was introduced in the ABC's Saturday morning cartoon because they were knuckle-deep in developing the title. The character was not simply an alter ego of Pac-Man, but an entirely separate character from a different dimension. Super Pac-Man was designed by the original Pac-Man designer Toru Iwatani and was programmed by Shoichi Fukutani. Mr. Fukutani's works include Dig Dug and King and Balloon. The Super Pac-Man cabinet is also a bit different than the previous two games in the series, including a side portion cut out for Pac-Man's mouth. Super Pac-Man flew into arcades in 1982. As you can imagine, there really isn't any storyline except for eating everything in sight while avoiding the ghosts unless you are either energized or in your super form. For the two of you out there watching this video and have never heard of Pac-Man, the original object was to gobble all the dots while avoiding those nasty ghosts who were trying to kill you. You can turn the table on them by either grabbing an energizer or a power pellet, which turns them blue, at which point you can gobble them up for a big point bonus. Super Pac-Man is more of the same, but there are some key differences to the gameplay. The main goal is still to clear the maze in order to proceed to the next, but this time, instead of eating dots, you have to open the various locked gates to munch on the trapped food inside. To do this, there are keys littered throughout which will open these gates so your ordinary Pac-Man can get through. In addition to the 4 standard power pellets which once again allow you to eat those filthy phantoms, there are now the green super pellets. These allow Pac-Man to grow in size and become his alter ego Super Pac-Man. Due to his size, it has not been confirmed whether or not these green pellets are some type of gamma poisoning or Viagra. After becoming Super Pac-Man, you're able to break through any gates that are locked and fly right over the heads of the ghosts unharmed. The ghost sprites are stretched thin and flat to give the impression that Super Pac-Man is flying overhead. Keep in mind though that this is just temporary, so you'll have to be quick. Also, it's worth mentioning that if you are transformed into Super Pac-Man, you can snag a standard power pellet which will not only turn the ghost into an edible treat, but also extend your time as Super Pac-Man. While you are transformed into Super Pac-Man, you can hold down the Super Speed button which will give you a much needed boost. The further you progress into the game, the more difficult it becomes, such as having to know which keys open which gates and shorter Super Pac-Man mode. In the earlier levels, keys will unlock nearby gates, but in the later ones, the locations of the gates that are opened after obtaining a key are usually far away. Instead of a standard fruit bonus as found in previous Pac-Man games, there is a slot machine-like feature right in the middle of the screen. 2 cycling fruits will be shown next to each other, and depending on how close they are to matching, the player will earn anywhere from 200 to 5,000 points for a complete match. Every few stages are the bonus rounds in which you have to eat all the food in the quickest amount of time as a point bonus counts down. The intermission screens also make their triumphant return and are pretty unique. The different food is a welcome addition and puts a little bit of spice into the basic Pac-Man gameplay. There are 16 different boards before the game starts to repeat, so in order, these are apple, banana, donut, hamburger, fried egg, corn, shoe, cake, peach, melon, coffee, mushroom, bell, clover, the enemy ship from Galaxian, and a gift. Now, believe it or not, I love superheroes. I love them so much that my nickname in high school was Pac-Man because I was such a huge fan of Batman. So of course, I'm going to have quite a bit of affection for this game. With that being said, I absolutely love the fast pace and unique gameplay elements this game introduced. The game is oftentimes considered the black sheep of the Pac family, but as previously stated, I really enjoyed it. The company only produced around 15,000 cabinets, which is a far cry from the production numbers of earlier Pac-Man games with numbers of over 100,000 each. Despite this, some merchandise was also available, including trading cards, bubblegum with a pretty cool display piece, audiobooks, coloring books, t-shirts, and even Super Pac-Man marshmallows and Pac-Man cereal.
Ghost, ghost, solar Pac-Man cereal! Then let's go ghost chopping!
Ghost choppers!
No tire! Who's gonna help us now?
Me, Super Pac-Man! Now this crispy corn cereal has added new Super Pac-Man marshmallows like me, the biggest ghost chomper of all!
Woo-hoo!
Ghost choppers!
I'm a ghost chopper too!
It's Pac-Man!
A chomping good part of a nutritious breakfast with me!
And me, Super Pac-Man!
It was even included as part of the arcade 1-up Pac-Man machine, as well as a portable partycade machine with Super Pac-Man aesthetics. Now, it wouldn't be considered a success if it didn't get its very own LCD handheld. Grandstand released this rare version, which honestly plays just like the original LCD version of Pac-Man, only with updated Super Pac-Man artwork. Super Pac-Man made a cameo in the games Super Smash Bros. And Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. He triumphantly appears as part of Pac-Man's final smash. There was even a huge promotion back in 2006 for the introduction of the mobile version of Super Pac-Man on Sprint. You could enter the sweepstakes to win a chance for an exclusive 2006 Volkswagen Beetle customized with a Super Pac-Man theme. Very cool. The game was released as part of Jack-specific plug-and-play Super Pac-Man joystick, which also included other Pac titles such as Pac-Man Plus and Pac-and-Pal. It was also released as part of TV Games Arcade Gold plug-and-play joystick. A wide range of conversions were produced, but let me start off this by showing off the spectacular homebrew that was made for the Atari 7800. This version is really good, quite possibly one of the best home conversions not running under emulation. Everything from the arcade game is here, and that includes the original opening attract scenes as well as the cutscenes. It also controls fantastic with good music and sound effects to boot. The game was slated to be released on the 2600, 5200, and Atari 8-bit computers, but due to the video game crash, these were canceled. However, prototypes for the 5200 and Atari 8-bit computer line were released, but both of them were pretty similar. The graphics have a zoomed-in, pixelated effect, and the colors are a bit raunchy as well. With that being said, it controls really good, at least using an Xbox controller through emulation. I'm not sure how well it works on an actual 5200 controller. The sound effects and music are pretty good and do a good job at replicating the arcade original. Over in Japan, the game was released for a couple of different computers, each one with a different name change. The first one is for the Casio PV-2000 and the name was changed to Mr. Pac-Man. The game looks very accurate though, although the sprites are strictly single color. The graphics are nicely detailed with excellent sound effects and music. Most important of all is that the game controls really well. Neither of these Japanese home computer releases included the bonus rounds or the cutscenes. That same year, yet another name change took place. Power Pack was released for the Sword M5 computer in Japan. This version is very similar to the Casio version but runs a bit smoother. The same great gameplay is also present here. Supposedly, there was some sort of legal issue surrounding the Super Pac-Man game which somehow involved Marvel Comics. This only affected the Japanese home releases at the time. Speaking of the Sword version, Team Pixel Boy produced a homebrew cartridge release of Super Pac-Man for the ColecoVision, which was a port of the Sword version. It would have been so cool to play this on our actual ColecoVisions back in 1983. The home version I grew up with was the Commodore 64 port. This was released by Thunder Mountain, who had also produced a few other games on the system, including Top Gun and Summer Challenge. Anyway, Super Pac-Man turned out really good with fast gameplay and pretty good music and sound effects. The graphics are good, although certain sprites are a bit chunky like a monkey. Your remaining lives are represented by weird smiley Pac-Man characters on the right side that do look just a tad bit sinister. The gameplay is really good though, so if you are a Commodore 64 fan as well as a Super Pac-Man fan, you should definitely check this out. Thunder Mountain also released a version for MS-DOS. In still shots, if you can get past the fugly color palette, then this game looks pretty good. Once you see it in action though, everything falls apart like an 85-year-old beach walker. Now I've seen some choppy gameplay in my life, but holy Toledo, this is almost unplayable. You all need to bow down to the king of the queefs because this game does not let up. The PC speaker is what's for dinner and there is no way to shut it off. However, the gameplay is pretty good if you can get past the horrendous animation and CGA colors. An EGA version with slightly better colors was also released. It was also released as part of the Ms. Pac-Man Special Color Edition for the Game Boy Color. This version, along with Ms. Pac-Man, turned out really good, although the screen now scrolls. You also have a different view option where the entire maze is viewed with no scrolling, but it lacks detail. The Ghost and Pac-Man himself are also a bit larger than normal, but I would assume it's to make up for the Game Boy's tiny screen. The music and sound effects are spot on, and the controls are nice and tight. In 2007, a version of Super Pac-Man was released for Java. While the animation is a bit ropey, the graphics have been updated and remind me quite a bit of Pac-Mania. The game looks really cool with a fresh coat of paint and updated audio. This does include the cutscenes and the bonus stages. The game has nice controls, but it's just too bad that the animation lets it down. If you don't care for that fresh coat of paint, a standard arcade version was released and it looks fantastic. The same Terrence and Phillips style animation is also present here. The game was included as part of the Namco Museum Volume 2 for the PlayStation. It was also part of Namco History Volume 3 for the PC. Namco released Super Pac-Man in the Namco Museum Remix compilation. They also brought it to the Namco Museum Virtual Arcade for the Xbox 360. Bandai added Super Pac-Man to the Pac-Man Museum compilation title. It was recently added to the arcade archives for the PlayStation 4 and Nintendo Switch. Last but not least, it was also included in the compilation Pac-Man Museum Plus. Super Pac-Man was always one of my favorites right next to Ms. Pac-Man. I always preferred this game to the original title due to the variance in the mazes and the different cutscenes. If you've never had a chance to get chased by some ghosts, all the while eating loads upon loads of fruits, be sure and give this game a shot. You'll be glad you did. If you like this video, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Also, if you would like to support me on Patreon, please click the link below. If you would like to contribute but not sign up for my Patreon, you can always click the donate button up above. Thanks everyone for watching.